Monday, February 17th, regular meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. The meeting has been properly notified, and we are going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we get going tonight, I want everyone to realize that we have brand new microphones, and they are hot, which means they will pick up anything that anyone says if you're projecting or if you are whispering, if you are at the table or if you are in the chairs. So unless you want your comments to be preserved for all eternity on the stream, probably be quiet. Thank you.
All of a sudden, the meetings are going to get a lot quieter.
So, do we have any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board? The microphones will pick you up wherever you are, so please
very
stand
good.
right there. Yes.
Hello, good evening. I'm Jamie Johnson, also known as James Johnson, and I am from the town of Hudson. I am running for judge for St. Croix County, and I know that River Falls is a community that goes right along the county line, and so some of you may be Pierce County residents. If you're St. Croix County residents, and even if you're not, if you know somebody who's a St. Croix County resident, you can pick up one of my flyers here. The brochure tells you about my background, my qualifications for running for judge, and there's a website, johnsonforjudge.org, and on there you'll also be able to see what other people who have known me for decades say about me. I've been a lawyer with the Lohman Abdul Law Firm. Next month, on March 12th, it'll be 35 years. And so I may set a record for the most experienced attorney ever running for judge. But with that, I also have life experiences, and I've been serving my community for decades as well, as those comments on the website will attest to. Most recently, 12 years, I'm coming off 12 years on the school board with Hudson, 11 as its president. And we're proud of the things that we've accomplished in Hudson. And for those of you who are board members, you know what kind of preparation it gives you for making tough decisions. I think that will serve me well when I'm on the bench. But I've had a reputation for honesty, integrity, being fair-minded. I've served as a mediator for third parties who need someone neutral to be able to resolve their cases. And so now I want to be on the bench bring the wide range of legal experiences and life experiences I have. And if you could encourage people, tomorrow there is a primary. It will reduce the number of candidates from 3 to 2, and then we have to do this all over again. They don't get votes, no votes can carry over. Now, last I checked, there's no primary for school board here. I think Somerset has one, but we don't have one in Hudson. We have a full slate. We've got 6 candidates for 3 spots, but April will be a very crowded ballot. Tomorrow, there's just 2 things on it. I'll let you get to your school business. Congratulate you on the work that you're doing. You guys are helping us be a magnet for people to come to Western Wisconsin. I think we've seen that with the people that have been coming over the border. So good job with your school district, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for stopping in.
Would anyone else like to address the board this evening?
I know you guys have missed me.
So Jackie, it's always good to see you.
Jackie Nickham, resident of the city of River Falls. It's about time. Well, speaking of elections, tomorrow on the ballot will be a primary for the Wisconsin Superintendent of Department of Public Instruction. And just to, I think actually it was Alan that reminded us that the governor had even criticized the current superintendent because she lowered the testing standards. So keep that in mind as you vote tomorrow. And we'll just leave it at that. The reason I'm here, though, is because I thought it was time for me to complain about my property taxes. So a couple weeks ago, I actually was in a nursing home with absentee ballots for people that cannot get out to vote at the polls. And this gentleman, totally bedridden, I had a person with me who, and we always travel in 2 people, to go into the absentee ballots. And she actually works at the city hall. And he said, oh, okay. So I got my tax bill, and he said, I'm not going to be able to pay my property taxes because I have no income now, obviously, in the nursing home. So she very kindly said, well, you'll need to explain it to your family and have someone go down to City Hall, and they will help you with that, which I thought was very nice of her to do. But anyway, and he was reassured, and that was a good thing. So back to my property taxes. I actually had a member of my family who was a school teacher down here, and when the budgeting came around, she had to live on a budget. She was a single mom, 2 children, and she had to live on a budget. So when the budgeting came around for her classroom, she was always a little annoyed that you had to use it or lose it. So you spent as much money as you possibly could, and you continue to do that. And, I heard somebody say it at City Hall the other day, let the taxpayers pay for it. I'm like, really? Come on. People like me, you are pricing me out of my home. So this year, my St. Croix County taxes went up 2.8%. The city of River Falls went up 9%. The school district of River Falls, 16.5%. And Chippewa Valley Tech, 8.1%. Okay, how long can this go on and people that are on fixed incomes can stay in their homes? My taxes went up $552. How many years can I afford to do that? Obviously, there's no help around here, but anyway, Jamie Benson, when he did the referendum, very smart, he did it in February, low turnout at the polls. No question about it. And he put signs in every school, so all the teachers went to vote. So many people don't know that there's even a primary in February.
So your time is, you've been over about 3 minutes, so you should tie up now.
Okay, so I'm just saying that, and now people are not aware of the $3 million in perpetuity. So $3 million this year, $6 million next year. The year after that is $9 million. In 5 years, it adds up to $15 million. Is that, am I mistaken on that?
Yes, you are mistaken. So,
okay, explain that to me.
Ms. Nickam, what I'm
can
going
do
to
that at a
ask
separate
is if
meeting.
you could have a meeting
Happy to do that.
with
Okay.
Lynette, and she'll explain it to you, because that's not an accurate way of understanding what that referendum
Well,
does.
what does $3 million in perpetuity means, I guess, is that
It's capped at $3 million.
It's capped.
okay, thank
So-
you.
Anyone else like to address the board this evening? All right, then we are going to move on to informational items. And the first one is we have a spotlight on education, and it will be with our Communications and Community Education Director. Welcome, Jenny.
Hello, thanks for having me. I thought it would be good to just highlight a few things that have been going on. It's been about a year since I've been here. So,
Lots happened.
yes.
You have to turn it on.
Thank you.
On the side.
Is the on this one?
It's on the side.
Got it. All right. So just 3 things that I'm going to cover in my presentation. One is our communications department, our community ed department, and our volunteer program, which the 3 of us, me, Lauren Kaminsky, and Leslie Schradel, are part of that. Leslie is our volunteer coordinator, as you probably know, and then Lauren and I handle the communications and community ed. Just a reminder that our role with communications is we are really a bridge between the district leadership, staff, students, parents, and the wider community, which fits really well with community ed because we're also a bridge. So I think the 2 departments work really well together. Our goal is to share information, timely, transparent, consistent, effective. We want to celebrate and recognize our staff, our partnerships, our school district. We want to provide timely and effective emergency messaging, and we just want to continue to build brand name recognition to have kind of a unified voice for our district. I grabbed some statistics. I'm trying to do this a little bit more often. This is our, did I miss a page? Oh, there we go. Our Facebook. just a few statistics, and I did this for Dave. I gave him a kind of a communication snapshot for the first September through December, and I'm going to do it again for the second half of the year. So this doesn't include January, but I thought it was interesting. We have 5.7 thousand lifetime Facebook followers. We were up 116 followers in that time period, so it's September through December of last year. The reach is 76,000 and 20,000.5 interactions. This was kind of fun. The top 5 posts was Katie Bausch riding a trike, which at Christmas time it was a video where she went through and had her Christmas music. Mr. Bishop's Outdoor Ed, Homecoming, Counselor Award, and Mr. Cappett's welding projects. So at the time, those were the top 5 posts in that time period. For Instagram, which I will tell you we do not post nearly as often, but will be, because today I had a breakthrough and I was able to connect Instagram and Facebook behind the scenes, which has been something that I've not been able to do in 4 years, and don't ask me how I did it, but Lauren and I spent a couple hours and we reset passwords, but in the in this same time period, we've got, you can see the statistics on the left side, and very similar top post. Katie's was the first one, but we also did a few things that we did just on Instagram. Instagram's great for Reels, and so is Facebook, but we had cardboard boat races at the high school. We like to share our athletics, so state qualifying cross country, and the band marching, and then we had a thankful reel of elementary students that we had made in our office. I want to talk about a couple of our challenges with social media. The algorithm of Facebook continually changes. So if any of you are on it, you'll see that it pushes groups, it pushes ads. And so keeping our information on the forefront is our goal, but we don't have a lot of control over that. So we're constantly trying to, we're actually putting more reels out there now because that seems to be what people are getting drawn into more. This second point I just mentioned is no longer the case. We now have connected, as of a couple hours ago, Facebook and Instagram. And that doesn't mean everything we put on Facebook belongs on Instagram, but it means we can cross-post because there are a lot of things that where it does make sense. Social media is still a really important platform for us to use. And I mentioned Reels. They're a great thing to keep people engaged, and one of the efforts we're doing is we are creating some reels for teacher recruitment. So we've got some shorts that we're pretty excited to release that we had some alum from our district create. Our website. These were the top 10 pages visited, so I'm now able to get some analytics. I wasn't able to get them last year, and I worked some things out with the web provider, but I just thought this was really interesting, that our district landing page is the first page, the highest page that's hit, which is not a surprise. Staff directory, calendars, the computer lab simply has to do with the fact that that's where the students go to access it. So that one's a little bit of a blip. But things like the employee quick links, that was something that when we were doing the website, it was kind of an afterthought right before we launched it, where I had an employee ask me where all the employee things were going to be found, and I'm like, oh, maybe we should do a shortcut. And I see it was definitely needed, because it's the 5th most accessed page. Something that we've been working on is what's called ADA digital compliance. So I would just say, I'll make this really short, but similar to the movement that happened in the 90s, where building and architecture was compliant for people who maybe couldn't have use of their legs. Why do we have buildings that have stairs in front of them? Same thing is now happening digitally. And so some of the things that we're moving forward on is, well, first of all, we're looking at all the pages on our website, and we're working with our vendor to ensure that the pages are compatible. So there needs to be the ability to tab through pages, and there needs to be color contrast and so on. All of our graphics, for example, when we send out newsletters, our graphics need to have an alt image behind the scenes. So So that's something that we do so that somebody who uses assistive technology, their reader would read that graphic to them. So if you've ever put closed captions on your TV and you see how that works, that's a really good indicator of how you do alt text. Same thing would go with multimedia and video. We would need closed captions and transcripts and documents and PDFs. This is a bigger undertaking. And social media. There actually are alt text that you can do in social media. So all of these things are a work in progress. We are not there, but they are on our radar and we're moving forward so that we can become compliant.
So would that be like, I know like a lot of magazine subscriptions now, you get them digitally and you can read it or listen to it. Click listen. Is it something like? things like
Yeah, so a technology that somebody would use, an assistive technology, would read it to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not providing the reader, but the individual who would be using the technology would have that set up that way.
Oh, okay.
So the format that we create is conducive to what a reader
Connects
needs.
to that.
Yep.
Correct. And again, it is a work in progress because it is a big undertaking. Just wanted to give a snapshot of the few of the things that are going on. As you probably all know, we have monthly district e-newsletter. We still have a really high open rate, and this makes me very happy. 63.2% is our average open rate. The industry average is 40%. So we send that out on a monthly basis. One will be coming out at the end of this week. It goes out to all staff, all parents, and anybody who has subscribed. So we do want to try to get the subscriptions as broad as possible, but right now we have just a couple hundred people from the community that are subscribing. So we're going to really try to push to get that number higher.
I wonder, go ahead.
As kids leave the district, do those parents then, are those emails off of there or they stay on?
They stay on.
Okay.
Yeah. We make them unsubscribe. So, and that is, and that's a good point, but they legally, we have to have an unsubscribe on
Yeah.
there, so they can, but we don't take them off.
So I have a question as to what counts as an open when you're reading this. If you're reading it in email and you read the whole thing, but you don't ever like open it into another tab or another browser window, have you opened the newsletter?
I believe so,
Okay.
but I will check on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. You
Like,
mean
yeah,
like it's side by side and you're just,
Like, you know how with
Haven't
some
opened it
emails
yet.
you can have the reader pane?
Yeah.
And you can just read the whole thing right in your reader pane. But I don't know if that counts as an open.
You know, I don't know, I don't read mine that way, but I will check on it.
Yeah.
I assume it is,
Read
if you've
every word
touched
of it.
and, because it's there right away, you don't have to click on it to read it.
Right.
So I would assume that, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, thank you.
just random thought, I'm not going to be able to go to it, but we have coming up our community information meeting with the City of River Falls update. Would that be a good place to like set up a table, advertise, or talk to people about signing up? People who show up, it's usually a full room.
Mm-hmm.
People who show up to that might also be people who would be very interested in hearing what's going on in the school
Yeah,
district.
that's a great idea. We've done that a couple times, and it doesn't always generate
Yeah.
the numbers, but it's not been at an event that specifically is like that, so that might be, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, how do we get other,
Yeah, because it's really important, and they're not, I mean, you don't have to read them if you don't want to.
there's usually good stuff. in there.
Yeah. School newsletters. We transitioned our schools to S'more. S'more is just a software that made it easy for our different schools to have kind of a unified look and address their needs in a way that was scalable. So when you, if you remember, a couple years ago, we switched and we did it in a Google Docs. And what we learned is that was not scalable on a phone. So if I read it on my device, I had to really work hard.
Yeah.
S'more scales appropriately. And so that was our first step. We may switch our district newsletter to S'more as well. The issue I'm having right now is really the subscribes and unsubscribes are not handled by S'more itself, and that's something we have to do legally, and it usually ties into another platform, and I have not figured that end out yet. The other advantage of S'more is when the recipient gets it, there is a translate button built in to the top toolbar, and they can translate it into any of, I think it's like 130 languages, and that's huge. Couple things that we've created this year, the character posters that you see around. We also had magnets and postcards. Our district newsletter, that is the printed one, we'll be doing another one later this spring. District scorecard. We've tried to really get some branding on our brochures. So here's an example of one side of 3 different brochures. So we've got them for the Renaissance, for Wiley's Wardrobe, and the Montessori, I think, are those 3. And we've done those in the last probably year or so. Fast Facts, you guys have seen that. That's just the updated one. And then here's some kind of a sneak peek of something we're really excited about. Those on the bottom right are banners that will hang in our high school parking lot. So last year's graduating class left some money, and we worked, they left them with Brian Jekyll. He was, I guess, part of, he and Zach Campbell wanted to do banners. They thought that was a great use of it. So we designed those, and we have them. It's just by the time, they require special brackets, and we can't hang them up, and the weather got bad. So they will be up in spring.
I love that.
And I think we got like 32 of them. They will also be on Cemetery Road. So. One other thing I wanted to mention is we try to keep communication going with media. And here's an example of a few things. So Dave has his superintendent column. It's an occasional column. I also will invite a reporter to come to different events. So one of them was the senior interviews, the exit interviews. So we actually had a reporter come, and he actually sat down and did an interview and wrote this article about it. I just thought it was a super cool event. So I like to keep that narrative going. And then that last one was one that I was covering for just social media, and as I was talking to her, the story kind of wrote itself. And I thought, well, I'm going to submit that to the paper, and they printed it. So, our volunteer program. As of the end of December, we had 719 applications that we processed. Leslie does a great job. She does not coordinate everything, so just the numbers we give you on the hours are just what we know, but we do clear everyone and do the background check and make sure that the guidelines are in place and in the proper hands. So 88 activities, and keep in mind an event can have several activities. Total of 1,203 spots have been filled in that time period, and the number of 735 participant volunteer hours, again, is just what she knows based on what she fills, not on the whole picture. So it doesn't include any field trips, any mystery readers, any of the STEP participant hours, and so on. Community Ed, just a quick snapshot. We just had a couple events in the last few weeks. We had Green Skills Sampler that was resurrected from, I think, 2017 was the last time. And that was a collaborative effort with UW River Falls, with Hope for Earth, and it was a day with 27 different breakaway sessions, so a person could pick up to 4 on all sorts of sustainable activities, things that are like backyard chickens, honey. There was even one on mending, small engine repair, and so on. And it was very well received. We had 119 people attend, and we definitely want to do it again. A few other classes that are new. We have a fused glass instructor, and her classes are filling well. Edgar Allan Poe and the Detective. I mean, we just have a whole variety of classes that we're offering that I think are being well received. Some of our partnerships, there's nothing that's you probably haven't seen before, but I'll mention a few. Whole Earth Co-op, The Garage, Balls Theater. We'll be doing a Marvelous Movie event again with mothers and their sons. And then some of our really popular offerings. So the Jigsaw Puzzle Competition was a couple weeks ago, and we had a wait list, so we can only have 22 teams in the media center, and that's dictated by our tables. So everybody has the same tables. So I think we had 15 teams on a wait list, which I don't like. So we're still trying to come up with a way to accommodate more. But it was really fun. Everybody gets the same wrapped puzzle, and then we do the countdown, and they rip it off, and then they begin, and it's really fun. And you can read the rest that are there, but we do have our Sweetheart Dance coming up, which is also known previously as our Daddy-Daughter Dance. And just here's a snapshot of the offerings. Right now, you can just see I brought in some numbers from other years. And I will tell you, sometimes these numbers slightly fluctuate. I mean, so like Alan, if you come to our advisory council, they might look a little bit different. And that the reason is that we flip classes from one catalog to another when a new one comes out. So I grab these from our system, and sometimes if they're printed in a catalog, behind the scenes, they might be counted in a different catalog and so on here. But they're pretty accurate. So we have 98 offerings right now. 85 have been held, or right now, 85 have been held or would be held. And 753 people so far have enrolled. And I just wanted to mention a few things. We, as a district, received 2 awards for WSPRA, so the Wisconsin School PR Association. We got an award of excellence for our referendum campaign, the communications, and we got an award of merit for the web overhaul. There have been presentations. Some of you have been involved in them. For WSPRA, I was a panelist and a presenter at the fall WSPRA convention. I also was a Zoom presenter for a PD series that we had. For WASB, we presented in January. And last year, when Alan and I presented on community ed, there were probably 5 or 6 school districts that I consulted with throughout the year about community ed and how they could bring it to their district. So I think that was a very effective way to share. We're becoming known as the district to go to for things like that, so it's pretty cool. And then I just wanted to mention the groups that, trying to continuously grow and learn from others. ICEPAC is our Western Wisconsin Community Ed Consortium. It's on a bit of a hold right now, but we get together usually several times a year, share ideas. Mentioned WSPRA. I just joined NSPRA, which is the National School PR, and I'm finding they are well worth I think it was $280 for the year, well worth the resources. And Dave Bell and I are actually doing a crisis communication tract with them right now, but I've already tapped into a lot of their resources, and I'm very pleased with it. So that is it. What questions do you have?
Jenny, I've got
Yes.
a couple. This is great. You're doing great work, and I always marvel when you come forward because you're involved in so many things. I think we get a lot of good out of your position. But I was thinking, as you're talking about reels and doing reels, is there potential to do a reel that, for lack of a better word, this wouldn't be an operating topic, why would I move my family to River Falls? That just talks about all the stuff in here, but it's specifically targeted to those families who might be interested in relocating, and this would be a real run. Maybe in social media and also be on our website. It could actually be a question like that when people are looking at homes over here or thinking about moving and those kinds of things. So why River Falls School District? And then boom, there's a reel that goes like that.
You know that we're kind of touching on that, but from a staff recruiting standpoint.
Sure.
So we have our teacher recruiting video that is about 2 minutes long that we're just doing the final tweaks right now. And that has, part of our goal was to really tell people, why do you want to, why would I want to move here as a teacher? So it is geared that way.
Sure. One
One of our shorts is on the community. So I think Zach Campbell says, my wife and I have been here 18 years, and it's, here's why. And we have, so we're touching on it in that as a reel, but it's really, and I would not even say that it's saying on it, the shorts aren't necessarily all, we're targeting teachers, but I wouldn't say that one would actually have to be just for teachers.
I just file it away because you've already got, when you said that about teachers, I'm thinking, well, you've already got a lot of the groundwork laid here. There might be another variation of this that talked about everything from the school forest to our parks in the city and all the kinds of the libraries and all the kinds of things. Anyway, just a thought, just an idea. But I think that's one thing that we're always interested in is our families moving here. Why would they move here? And do they know about us and why River Falls? The other, when you mentioned community subscriptions, and Allison was talking about this, I wonder is there a way for us to use and partner with the chamber, the city council, Any other organizations, the service clubs and others, to help us distribute an invitation to subscribe to our newsletter, want to know what's going on in our schools, especially non-parents out there. I think the service clubs would be a great way. The Chamber of Commerce might be another. Just an invitation from us or from Stacy and Dave or something like that. Want to stay tuned in, subscribe to our newsletter.
I think that would go a long way if you personally reached out. I mean, I think the challenge is you have to get somebody to sign up right then or put their name on a, I don't know, sometimes like when I get emails and people invite me, I'll be like, yep, and then I just kind of let it sit because it's another email in my box. So I think that personal connection, I don't know, I mean, maybe in the chamber newsletter, we can have something for the district and just like a quick update. I don't know what we're allowed to have for space as members.
Yeah, I think there would be an opportunity to do that with Chamber, or at least inquire.
Yeah.
Service clubs.
Well, at Rotary,
churches.
just say, take
Yeah.
out your phone right now.
Yeah.
Go here, sign up. Or another, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
A random idea too was when are people who aren't parents, when do they come into our schools? And a lot of grandparents, a lot of older people come in when there's a choir concert or a play in a child's. And what if when they came in, there were some friendly school board members giving away a little school district bling? And like a button or something that says, I support our public schools, and getting them to sign up to get the
I
newsletter.
like that idea a lot.
You know, meet a school board member here tonight, or a man, you know, but how could we get more older people to sign up for these
We
letters?
could do it down at Johnny's too. I'll take that one. Right. I'm there almost every time.
There you go. Take out your phones now.
But I think your point of like take out your phones now and do it
Yeah.
is part of it. Is it's you've got to capture that email right away, or it becomes something that gets forgotten. But I love that idea.
Jenny, do we have a QR code that would take somebody directly to
There you
the
go.
sign-up
Yeah,
page?
we can. I mean, we can have that. I've done that before. We've done that at like Earth Fest. We did that once. Like sign up for our newsletter, and we had a big QR code.
Sure.
Another random idea would be, and we have a gentleman here tonight, Troy, from Troy Township, but the town boards, their emails are all right online. And you could just sign them up or go to a town.
So legally, I cannot.
You can, but I probably can. We like it. No, for hot, the mics were hot. But inviting them,
Yes.
you know, visiting the towns, and people who are elected
Yeah,
officials.
Amanda and I have had conversations about reaching out to town boards and
Yeah.
circling back now that we're a year past the referendum and providing a brief update.
Yeah.
Kind of going when there isn't a campaign and just giving an update
a good idea.
is a good process, a good next step.
But the QR code, there could be a poster in all around our gyms where all these parents or grandparents are showing up all the time that just want to subscribe to our newsletter.
Grocery store posters.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I think it's just really, we would need to make a deliberate effort and have some sort of a poster, and I like that idea.
But just to conclude my comments is, when you're a really creative and innovative operation, don't be surprised if you come to the school board, you just come up with all kinds of new ideas and more stuff.
Well,
for you
you're
to
on my
do, okay?
advisory council, so I always know.
Yeah. But your work stimulates more ideas and things with us, so. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
You and Lauren have done a wonderful
Glad you're
job
back.
on this for the school district, and one of the things that I really appreciated is how complex it is and how interconnected your work is in terms of really everything that we do in the school district. So
It's the
thank
best
you.
job, though. We love.
Well, that's
And
terrific.
she is fabulous, so I'm glad you mentioned her.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. All right, we are going to move on to reports, and we have our student rep here tonight. So Eddie, do you have a report for us?
Yes. Tonight I'm just going to be focusing on some recent student council events and information. So first I just wanted to touch on, I was sick the last meeting so I didn't get to talk about it, but this year's student council had immense success with the Giving Tree. And kind of just a reminder, that was an event we held where we reached out to counselors and found students that would benefit from getting gifts for the holidays. And then we sent a form to their families, and they filled out gifts they'd like, and some were surprised and some weren't. And with the drive, we were able to give like 2 to 5. I think most of them had more than 2, but that was like the least there was, presents to 16 students at the high school. And I just think that's really incredible how many people were able to come together to make that happen. And I was walking to class and I saw a student coming back from getting their gifts, and it was just a really special moment for me to see how much of a difference like that made for their day. And then I'm also going to talk about how this past Wednesday we had a student council conference in Chippewa where 4 representatives went, and it just gave us the opportunity to collaborate with other schools like near us and just see how we can improve our student council in our school, and just like the culture of everyone coming together. And then I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I think it was Thursday, there was a senior leadership meeting where student council attended, and they collaborated with ideas of like graduation and just how to kind of take the things that we got from the conference and like bring them into the school like as soon as we could, and just create goals for when we can implement those things into the school.
Well, terrific. It's really nice to be able to hear what's going on with Student Council. It sounds like you and your group are doing some really important work, so. And if you need help getting the word out, you can just talk right over there.
Communications.
Yes.
Put it on Instagram.
All right, administrative reports, and the first one is we will have a goal update from our elementary principals.
Hi, everyone.
So welcome.
Hi. All right, and so now that we have that first data point, we're starting to have conversations in our buildings about how to move things forward. So for kindergarten through 3rd grade, our assessment and screening tool is Ames Web Plus, and then for 4th and 5th grade this year, it's been FastBridge as a continuation from the work last year.
This also is just kind of a recap of all things WIG at the elementary level. So really our goal originally was identified just because of we found that we had some stagnant data from 3 years of forward exams and FastBridge, and kind of pairing that with a new resource at the elementary in the 3 buildings, collaborative literacy, collaborative classroom, as well as at the Montessori, we implemented a new tracking system this year called Transparent Classroom. So that was kind of our way of capturing and guaranteeing our viable curriculum. With that, we also, so we used our forward and our FastBridge data, but the story really was, here we have highly qualified teachers and not the scores that we were hoping for. And so we really saw that as an execution gap. And so really kind of taking this year to make those changes and really kind of put in all of the support needed for in-services, training, resources, that sort of thing. And really all of the factors that influenced that decision, had to do with the resource that we chose, that the curriculum committee chose for the 3 elementaries, as well as kind of how the Montessori was aligning their scope and sequence and their materials to the science of reading.
So monitoring our WIG. We have a lot of different ways that we monitor our WIG. I know in our BLT meetings, every month we talk about what every team is doing, working towards this goal. Specialists, classroom teachers, everyone is focused on reading achievement. But the numbers for our winter screening that Rachel referred to earlier, and I'll just kind of walk through, I'm not going to read the scores to you, you can see those, but the difference is there's some nuances to what we're assessing at each grade level. So in kindergarten, this data is on letter names and letter sounds specifically. And this is mostly dictated by Act 20 and what we're required to use to determine whether or not a student is proficient or not proficient. At grades 1 through 3, that's an oral reading fluency. So it's a 1-minute timed reading. They read a few passages. And so it's the words per minute. So how fluent of a reader are they? And then for grades 4 and 5, because they're not really a part of Act 20 legislation, we have a little more say over what we can use to assess. And we're currently using FastBridge, which is what we've used over the last few years. That test is called A reading, and that's more of a test of broad reading skills. So not just a words per minute, not just fluency. It assesses fluency sort of, but then it also assesses whether or not a student can comprehend what they're reading. So it's a more broad test of their reading skills. So currently, it's our winter screening data, which would normally be kind of our mid-year, let's check it to our fall scores. This year, it's our baseline. So this is our jumping off point that we will then compare our scores in the spring to. Some other things, and we're going to share just kind of an example of other ways that we're monitoring besides our screening data. For example, in our new reading resource at the 3 elementary schools, one of the things that we're really focusing on with our students is that their everyday work counts. It's not about a test at the end of the unit. It's not all about the test at the end of the unit. That the work that they're doing on a daily basis counts towards their proficiency. For example, the last reading unit that we did, my 5th grade team, for example, students had to write a 2-paragraph summary of a novel. And that summary had to have certain components to it. So the students wrote their summary during class, and then the teachers brought it to our collaboration time, and they were able to look at it, and they sorted it out and said, okay, what's meeting expectations, who needs some work, and who's maybe exceeding expectations, and how are we scoring this together as a team? And that's work that kids are just working on a daily basis, as opposed to, okay, now we're taking the test, and this is what's going in the grade book. So one of the things that the teachers are working with the kids on is that belief that everything you're doing here to show us whether or not you understand this content, it's happening on a daily basis. And that's just kind of a shift from kind of how we were assessing in our previous reading resource.
And I think it's a shift not just for students, but for teachers to be
Yes.
able to say a student work sample that they did is an assessment, right? I don't have to give an exit ticket. I don't have to have them do a summative assessment on a computer. So also that shift in teachers of conversation of how does that impact the things we're going to do instructionally when we've grabbed something from that day that feels super authentic. So conversations, not just with kids, but I think between teachers during that collaborative time have been really impactful as well. The example I was going to talk about, another piece of this resource that's different for our 3 buildings, and then I'll transition to Kai, is the fact that our phonics lessons are taught in small groups. And so one of the tools that we use to see how students progress through the phonics progression and scope and sequence is small group mastery checks. So every 4-ish weeks, our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade teachers will bring those assessments. They have high frequency words and phonics patterns, and they sit and look and say, okay, who needs to keep going, status quo, who maybe needs a couple reteaching lessons, who is doing great with the phonics patterns, but HUFTA needs some support with high frequency words. So there's a ton of instructional conversations happening around that tool, especially because they're really able to understand where their readers are at with phonics instruction because they get them in such a small group at least 2 to 3 times a week.
The really cool part is that this is all so Montessori, that what they're doing in the other buildings, and I finally feel like I'm starting to fit in with some of this stuff. So in our building this year, we've really been making a push towards understanding the science of reading and how that relates and overlaps with our Montessori curriculum. And really, Montessori was the beginning of the science of reading back in 1907, and obviously they've taken it, exponentially forward. And so we've had a lot of our PLC time and a lot of our in-service time really overlaying what we do in relation to that and using outside sources to make sure that that's happening. But we do one-on-one conferencing, we do daily journals, we do all of our teachers that are trained have had probably within their training, either at the university or other places, at least 90 hours of observation training, which is a huge part of kind of that overall, it's not just the test, because we don't do tests really, but it's not just that there's all sorts of ways to assess children. And so really for us, it's that portfolio, it's those work samples, it's the daily observations of every single child, it's the small group lessons, it's the individual lessons. So just starting to feel more like the part of the team here.
And we've had some really great planning conversations around how our teachers at maybe the more traditional buildings can do some learning from the Montessori. Collaboration sometimes there has felt clunky because it feels like we're different methodologies coming together, but this is a really organic spot to learn from each other, so it's exciting to have that opportunity to kind of plan around for the future too. So thinking about the lag data that we just showed you, we have a few reflections that we wanted to share from our team. The first is that if you remember, our goal is either proficient or exceeds their yearly growth goal. And figuring out that student growth with FastBridge was something we all felt really well-equipped and confident to do, and with Ames, we've lost a bit of that confidence. So we're regaining kind of some tools and working to make sure that that's really bite-sized and easy to use for our teachers. So figuring out, is it Ames reports that we're using? Is it creating something in-house so that we have a similar tool for K-5? So working with our school psychs and our special education teachers and with each other to kind of figure out how do we have a tool or tools kit that can help us monitor growth over time. With that student growth, we've had a lot of conversation about what does that growth mean, right? Obviously, we want to ensure students are growing. Both of our benchmark tools give us kind of a rate of improvement for students, but more so than that, saying, how do we meet the growth, right? Is it fall to spring? Is it fall to the winter window? Is it winter to winter? There's so many different possibilities, so really trying to hone in on the specificity of that goal to make sure that students, staff, and our administrative team and board all kind of understand what we mean when we say meeting student growth goals. And then that last piece, we have also used last year's forward data with all of our teams kind of in some different ways, but to make sure that we're making instructional decisions based on the forward data. There's an item analysis that we put in front of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers to say what standards were maybe missed, what things should we beef up in instruction, kind of what story did we get from the forward data from last year, even in the midst of new tools and resources, making sure that we are using that lag data to impact the things we're putting in front of kids.
And then, excuse me, as Rachel alluded to earlier, kind of with the growth data, not only that, but just improving our overall proficiency in using Ames Web data. We've sort of been in survival mode in terms of implementing all of the pieces of Act 20 and using the assessments that we are required to use, required to learn, that we haven't used for a few years. Now, Ames Web has been used in the district previously, but not for a few years. And some of the assessments that we're using now are not ones that were used in the past. So just becoming overall more proficient in using the data that we have, not only to calculate growth, but also for instructional planning and whatnot. Currently, it's pretty strictly dictated in Act 20 which assessments we use to determine which students have a personal reading plan. So that is a piece we have spent a lot of time with our kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers on, which is assessing the students. If they fall below the 25th percentile, then we do more assessments. And then we meet and we look at what supports are we putting in place, and then we're writing those reading plans, communicating them home to families, getting acknowledgement back from families that they read the plan and they agreed to the plan. And so ensuring that we're meeting all the requirements of the law, as well as doing what's best for every kiddo that falls in that category, as well as everyone else, has been a major focus of our time over the last few months. And I will say that the conversations that our teams have had have been productive. They've been good conversations. Essentially what we did was we did all of our screening data. The classroom teachers did part of it. We have a data team that helps with the other part of it. And then, for example, our 1st grade team or grade level teams would have a sub day. So they would have a sub in their classroom. They would do the rest of the diagnostic testing with their students, and then for the afternoon, they would talk as a team with our intervention staff, with any additional staff that we have that can come in and help provide interventions. We determine who was doing what intervention, and then they had time as a team to write those reading plans. So we've had a very concerted effort to make sure that every single kid that falls below that 25th percentile has a plan. And that's been a very heavy lift for everyone, but has been well received and I think well implemented.
kind of the last thing to put in front of you today. These were the lead measure pieces that we have committed to as an elementary team. So we wanted to reflect on the things that we said we were going to do and how we were doing with them. So the first is that we said we were committing to 85% or more of authentic PLC collaboration meetings on Thursday morning. If you remember, our students stay outside for some extra recess on Thursday, so we have a full kind of hour block of time for teams to talk. And so we averaged that we're at 82% of Thursdays where we've met in grade level or content banded collaborative meetings, which feels really, really wonderful. I think all of us are striving to ensure that those meetings stay really authentic and really intentional. And so that's kind of where our focus has shifted, that we know we have the structure and the system to have the meetings and check the box, but making sure that we have really high impact conversations happening during that time to benefit our students. So working towards different data protocols, like Kate was talking about with the student work samples, really defining what's going to be the most high impact piece of student evidence to have conversation around is where we've kind of shifted our focus at this point. For our small group reading intervention, we're using SIPS, which is the resource paired with collaborative literacy, and then we're using UFly at the Montessori. Julie, the Montessori interventionist, also used SIPS, so it was great because the title reading team got to have a lot of collaboration around one tool as everybody was implementing, so that was really great. There's continued training for our Title I reading teaching staff, which is great, and I know Julie and I actually just met this week, continuing to collaborate and calibrate the UFly materials with not only the Montessori materials and programming, but just with SIPS too, to ensure, are we meeting everything with Act 20? Do we have kind of the resources needed? There's always a desire for more decodable text, ensuring that we can have kids transfer things out of that room into their classroom. So that team continues to work really, really hard to do that. The last one, and then I'll transition to Kai. Like she mentioned earlier, we talked about the new resource at the elementary level at Greenwood, Rocky, and West Side is collaborative literacy, and then that transparent classroom tool at the Montessori. We've been doing a lot this year, obviously, in a new ELA implementation. It's a really heavy lift for our grade level teachers. So as an administrative and kind of instructional coaching team, we've done a lot of implementation fidelity checks. So if we're saying, hey, this is a really important part of our resource, taking the time to ask teachers how it's going, observing those specific practices in the classroom, kind of collecting data actually in walkthroughs to say, okay, how many of our classrooms are doing the reading mini lesson like we think it's supposed to look, and collaborating with the trainer from the resource company. So that's been really great. A ton of professional development time during in-service has been devoted to understanding that resource and its implementation this year, and then just really trying to think too about the connections with the top 10 tools training that we had teachers do as part of Act 20, and starting to really intentionally connect the new resource with that tool to build teacher toolboxes.
All right, and then just to kind of piggyback on that, so the UFly Foundations tool that the Montessori is using for some of our intervention work is actually University of Florida Literacy Institute. So it is a curriculum that is based off of the science of reading that is basically the national. If you go into any Montessori school and you ask them what aligns best with Montessori in terms of science of reading intervention, they would say UFly. So we have most of our K through 3 teachers who have been trained in it through CISA, and Julie, our title teacher, uses both SIPS and UFly, and really kind of does a lot of checks and fidelity checks and things with our staff, and there's just a lot of our PLC work has been around that this year, just getting that up and going. Also, on top of that, our Transparent Classroom is literally an online tool that is a lesson tracker, and so Montessori lessons pretty much stay the same. Our materials are our materials, our lessons are our lessons, but how complex and what a web that is the part that's really, really tricky for teachers. And so this tool gives teachers the opportunity to really track what lessons are giving to what students, and then also plan and kick out weekly lesson plans in small groups so that we can see, oh, these 5 children need this, these 2 children need this. And so it really keeps track. And so I do a lot of work with teachers. They hand in weekly lesson plans to me just so that they're getting used to that idea of constantly tracking, and they bring their Transparent Classroom to their PLC meetings, and that's what they're really looking at in terms of their data is how far along are their students, and then we ask all of the PLC questions around different lessons. We also, this year at the Montessori, we have implemented Child Study, which is a Montessori, public Montessori SST process. So basically, any student that's struggling for any reason, teachers can bring that child to Child Study with their observation notes, and then it goes through a process of, it's a meeting with many teachers, giving a lot of different ideas for interventions and accommodations that we can make within a Montessori classroom. And then we track that data for another 6 to 8 weeks, and then we have another meeting, seeing if it's working, if things need to be tweaked, if we need to we always get parents involved right out of the gates. And a lot of times, we've already had 22 Child Study meetings this school year. We've got another probably 30 on the books before the end of the year, and the teachers love it. And so this has just been a really neat way to be able to keep needs being met within that tier 1 in our classrooms without having to grab a bunch of interventionists or or make sped referrals when they're not necessary. So we're feeling really good about that.
That's our update for you.
Yeah.
Any questions we can answer for you?
So, I mean, this is really good, and there's a lot going on here, and this is obviously a big topic. In fact, I think my prediction would be the next few years, this will be a major national topic about proficiency in reading. And the question most people will ask, I think, parents, grandparents, everybody, and I keep thinking, how is it that a country as affluent as ours can continue to have so many kids who by grade 3, aren't proficient in reading? And I think one response I've got to that is we need to make sure that not being proficient in reading doesn't mean they can't read. And I think that needs to be said more often, because I think that's the way it gets interpreted. How could somebody get to the end of 3rd grade and not be able to read? No, that's not what proficiency is. You talked today about the complexity of texts, understanding texts, applying all those kinds of things that are much more in terms of what we need by the end of grade 3, right? Is that correct? So I'm anxious to see where this goes, because we've heard from our high school, there's a focus on reading still in high school, and there's a concern at all levels on reading, and so how's this going to play out, and results. But you talked a lot about assessment and data and analyzing data, and of course, one of the rules of thumbs and statistics, and I learned it growing up on a farm, weighing the pig don't make it any fatter, right? So we can analyze the data all we want. It's what are we doing with it, and then are there results with it? And I'm hearing that you are analyzing it. We aren't just collecting it, but we're doing a lot of assessment, it sounds like, and hopefully this will take us somewhere. But it literally has to take us somewhere, because as a public board, we're going to feel it, right away. And the tough thing is when you look at our stats and you say, there's 20 to 30% of our students at any given point aren't proficient in reading. That's pretty good for Wisconsin and pretty good nationally. And I've heard it 3 times within the last week when people are reading the national statistics and start asking me, how come our students, well, it's not our students. Our students are doing better than that, but our students are still doing well. So I think we've got to really be showing results, and I don't say that to put pressure on or anything else. I'm just stating the obvious here. We've got to show results. So all the things we're doing here, our hope is that, and our trust is that this is going to go somewhere. So.
Well, and I meant to share this during my portion, but one of the things that we've found is, as I shared with you that chart that showed the specific assessments that are used, at 3rd grade in particular, we had a number of students who were flagged as below the 25th percentile because we're just using words per minute. Those particular children were scoring like 97% proficient on comprehension, but it was just their fluency. So that child can read a book, maybe not as fast as the kid next to them, but their comprehension was great. But because it's dictated by Act 20 that the 25th percentile on fluency is why they have a reading plan. So we've had a lot of meetings with families because we're telling them that their kid is doing great right? Like, yeah, your kid can comprehend, we just need to get more fluent. And so those are some of the conversations, one-on-one conversations we've had to have with families to say, your child is doing well in comprehension. We're gonna keep working on this fluency piece, because we do know that fluency does correlate to increased comprehension. It's just some kids read a little slower than others, right? And so those are very individual conversations that we're having with every single family that falls into those categories. And so when you say, yes, we're doing a lot of assessing, but we're also following up with families, we're following up as a team. So those particular kids are literally doing some repeated reading every day to try to increase their fluency. We'll continue doing what we're doing with comprehension with them because that's working. So those are some really specific examples of what you're talking about.
We would have a lot less reading plans in third grade, especially if we were looking at a composite score that blended the comprehension with the reading fluency. I think at the Montessori, we would have one student in all of our third grade that would be on a plan if we were looking at a composite score. But instead we have 8, so it's just a difference in terms of what the state finds important in the way that we're doing this.
That's the complication, isn't it?
Bingo.
Because one of the things that I appreciate is that you are all educators who understand how children learn and grow, and you are bringing that expertise to your work with teachers, to your work with families and kids, and I suspect in terms of how you understand and interpret all of these assessments. So thank you very much. Please extend appreciation to your teachers who are doing this hard work. And I also hope that our kids are learning to love reading. Because if they don't love reading.
Yes. Us too.
Yes. So thank you for a very well-prepared presentation and for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Now we are going to move on to the superintendent's report. The kids celebrated 100 days, but our superintendent is celebrating 180 days.
Yes, I am. I'm happy to still be here. So entry plan, this goes back to, we did an update in July after 30 days, and we did an update in October as well. It's just kind of monitoring the progress of the entry plan for the new superintendent. And this is really just to make sure that we have a successful transition and stay focused on the things that make this district great. So really there are 4 areas that we focused on: governance, student success, organizational alignment, and communication and engagement. So I have updates in all 4 areas tonight. The first piece to talk a little bit about is governance, and I'm going to give an update on how we've done in implementing our policy and some of the work that our board has done to stay attuned to what is best practice and the supports that I've done to help with that. And then we'll talk a little bit about student success and talk about where we are with monitoring the strategic plan implementation and how we're monitoring that. And then talk a little bit about organizational alignment and the mentorship and support of new administrators. And then with communication engagements, talk a little bit about the guiding documents that direct how we communicate to our different stakeholders, and talk specifically about an employee listening session plan. So this is, there's just some stats here, right? So our goal was the 100 series and the 200 series. We would do a full policy review in this school year. We will be on track to complete the 100 series by the end of April. And when I say complete, I mean all second readings that we will be completed with. And then we'll start the 200 series, which is, we'll all be happy to know, is significantly shorter than the 100 series. So I think we'll still be able to get that done by 7/1/25. And then in addition to that, our directors have really dug into other elements of our policy. So the instructional series, which is 300, student series, which is 400, personnel 500, fiscal management 600, support services 700, and community relations 800. And I just give an update there on what's in progress, whether we've completed the update, whether we've done something new, or whether what's in the first or second reading. And so if you were tracking along and you were adding everything up, so far we have 72 policies that are updated, newly adopted, or either in the first or second reading. So we're excited by that progress, and really, yes, it's about the task. I like the task of seeing how far along. I was excited to be able to say 72 policies, that's cool, but really what it's about is as a board, digging into the policies that we're making sure align to our district mission and vision, and really becoming experts on what that means, and asking those hard questions. And if that means taking one more month, that means take one more month, and we'll get it right. And I think it's a really important process to go through. It can be overwhelming sometimes. I think Stacy mentioned once that once we complete all of this, then we'll just start right over. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe 1 month off, but yeah. But that is the process,
I
continuous.
think that was Mike that said that.
Yeah, right.
I think Mike suggested it. Jenny mentioned this as well. We had a large contingent participate in the state ed convention, including Mark Chapin, who's pictured there, did a presentation on character education. I think that signifies the board's support of us being leaders within the state in certain areas, and then a picture there of the crew that helped with another presentation. That opportunity that's facilitated really by the team, and Amanda Taylor does a ton to make sure that we all have an opportunity to participate there. It really gives us all a chance to understand how our work is connected to the greater work of other school districts within the state, and making sure that we're on track. I want to talk a little bit about student success. When we started this year, one big goal was to have a scorecard and have a monitoring calendar. So what's really cool is tonight you've seen the second elementary update, and they did a fantastic job. I think they could talk for another 3 hours on this topic. It's their area of expertise, and it's their area of passion, and it's really fun to see that coming to fruition. A lot of it is driven by Act 20, but there's a personal element to our district really zeroing in on this as a priority as part of our strategic plan, and I think that's important to highlight. So again, the update here as the superintendent is we had a great strategic plan. We know monitoring is important. We just wanted to create a system around that, and that's a little bit what we have here. So on the website, you'll see under River Falls Learns, everything that can be updated is updated. Under River Falls works the same thing, and as well as connects. So we're excited to continue to update that data as it becomes available. So for example, we have a good baseline data for our elementary WIG. We will update that in the spring, and then we have a couple of years to continuously monitor how we're doing for that. Organizational alignment. One area that I had as a key area within the transition is just to support administrators. We've got a lot of administrators that I would say are either brand new to their position within River Falls School District or newish to administration in general. And so I just thought I'd outline a few steps of the way that we support our new administrators within this district. They go through a pretty intense process of self-review against their administrative framework, whether it's a principal or a director. And we have goal-setting conferences on a regular basis. We do formal and informal sampling visits where we have really good conversations about what's going well and where our areas of struggle, and it's a very good, strong, collaborative conversation. We also have, through leadership development and our administrative PLC, our directors of human resources and leadership, Nate, and the directors of academic services, Amy and Mary Beth, do a great job of also leading our administrative team. And then kind of from the formal standpoint, we have mid and end year reviews. And then communications and engagement. I don't feel like I have to touch too much on this because Jenny just nailed it earlier. But we really wanted to, when Jenny and I talked under this, we wanted to establish kind of a consistent, systematic process and design for how we are communicating to our stakeholders, making sure that parents, when they see something, they know it came from River Falls School District by its brand and by the type of communication that it is. We want to be compliant so anyone has access, and we want to have it be easily translatable so everyone can read it in their home language. And so those things have kind of driven some of the goals that Jenny talked about. I don't need to belabor that point. And then another piece that she also mentioned is we're going through some crisis communication training to help us with that portion of our safety response. And there's so many elements to preparing for crises, but communication is really key, and so that's been a good thing, and we've participated in one, and we'll have multiple sessions with the Crisis Academy. And then the last piece is our staff listening sessions, which will be generally in that April timeframe, and it's really an opportunity to gather feedback and provide gather feedback and also provide. It's not worded well. I apologize. It should also say provide important employee information, right? And so looking for ways to improve attendance in these, with also making sure it's an opt-in. We don't want to make it be mandated or take their valuable prep time, but we also want to find ways to kind of compel or increase engagement with staff. And then one way that we're going to do that is we're going to communicate with, Amanda will help communicate when they are, and school board representatives will be invited to participate. That's my update. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for the work and for the update. We are going to move on to action items. Before the board this evening are the minutes from the January 20th regular Board of Education meeting. We have bills that have been submitted for payment, as well as employee recommendations regarding employment. Is there a motion to approve minutes, bills, and employment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Allison. A second, Monica.
Yeah.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried at 6-0. Now this evening, I am going to call on Mr. Enerson, who would like to address the board regarding a proposal to detach his land from the school district property.
Well, good evening. Thank you for being on the board. I understand the role of a board because I'm on the Hoy Town board. Served on many boards in my life, so I appreciate you. And I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak, but I just want to tell you a little history of how this started. First I better say, my wife isn't here because she plays bells in church and it's Monday night practice. I'm not trying to weed her out of the picture. But anyway, in 2013 I bought this place, and in 2014 when I got my tax statement, I discovered that I had 3 tax statements. And I've owned property for the last 60 years in 4 different places, and I've never received 3 different tax statements for one piece of property. So anyway, I went to the town of the Troy clerk, and she just looked at me, stared at me, didn't really know what I was doing there. So then she told me I should go to the clerk of St. Croix County. She did the same thing. She just kind of stared and looked at it, no answers. Went to the treasurer, the assessor, and to our town assessor, and no answers. That's 10 years ago. And so patiently I waited, and we got a new assessor last summer. And I brought it up at our board of review, like, why am I getting 3 tax statements? And she said, I don't know, but I will get an answer for you. And about 4 days later, she said, school boards draw lines, and they drew a line in your property, and you ended up being in 2 different school districts. So anyway, I got an answer. And so then I went, they helped me fill out the form, and then also they told me that where I could get my answer is from the St. Croix County Community Development. I thought, who would go there to find out about your taxes? Wouldn't you go to the assessor or the treasurer or something? So anyway, now I know where to go, and now I know where to tell our clerk if somebody comes in with a question to get answers. You don't have to wait 10 years. But I want to thank Superintendent Benson. He did a good job, and your new superintendent, and especially to Lynette. They've got me here. Now, I hope I get the answer I want. But I want the board to know that you've got some very capable, good staff people that they weren't making any decisions, so they didn't tell me, but they were very helpful. And I know Lynette even called me and reminded me, because that was last June when I started it, so she wanted to make sure I'd come last Monday and this Monday. So anyway, you got good staff. That's good. The other thing I'd like to say is that at the last meeting, Lynette made the comment that 2 of my properties were joined together. I didn't even know that. but I talked about it last summer. So I won't have 3 partials, I'll have 2 partials, one here and one in the Hudson School District. But the only comment, so I called our assessor and I said, boy, I'm sure learning a lot here. I said, yeah, she said that happened. Then I said, well, Lynette said that the value was like 81,000. I said, how do we know that? She said, no, we don't know that. So the value isn't 81,000. She said, when you combine the 2 together, the value is going to go down. The reason why they're higher is small partials, like lot partials are higher. So anyway, other than that, you did a good job. But
Well, in my defense, I think I said last year, so in 2024.
24,
those were
payable
the
in 25,
values.
that's the right value.
I would never try to value your property, though.
Anyway, the value, that'll be, a new value will be arrived at this year and then payable in 26, so other than that. So anyway, that's why I'm here tonight, pleading to get this down to one tax statement, because it's one piece of property. And I have maps here, maybe for those, the rest of you that can see them. But anyway, just maybe to help explain my situation. On the bottom is the Towns Valley Road, if you're familiar with Towns Valley Road. And then the 2 acres, and then I got 2.95 acres. On the 2 acres is my driveway and my utilities coming in. So that's another thing that she told me last week when I called. She said, you can't break up those partials, because your utilities are on there. And also my well is in the 2.95. So there's no reason in the world that this should be 3 partials of land. And the reason why that I'm in the Hudson School District is that my house is in the 5.4 acre partial. So just so you understand, I think we cleared that up very clear last time, but anyway, I just really feel and I really want to have one tax statement. It's really, it doesn't make sense to get 3 tax statements mailed to you, and somebody has to do 3 tax statements. But anyway, I hope that this board will undo what happened. I suppose what happened in country schools closed, people got together, and here's where we draw lines. And things like that happen. I mean, I'm on our town board. We just solved a problem that was 40 years old here 2 years ago. So things can be solved and things can be done. So that's what I'm here for tonight, is just to ask you if you will put this now one parcel of land into the Hudson District, because so I can get one tax, and then I think I would be taxed fairly. I don't think I'm really being taxed fairly now, but I'm not grumbling, because taxes are taxes. And I know in the Hudson District, we got a $5 million levy for the next 6 years. So I went online today when I had some time, and I read what they're asking for and why they're asking for it. And that levy, which is $5 million for 6 years, will end up costing me $20 a year. For 6 years, $120. I mean, what's that? I mean, I realize my kids have all graduated, my grandkids have all graduated, but I have great-grandkids. I have 3 of them, 1 more on the way. And if we don't take the attitude that I can afford $20 a year, we ain't gonna keep the school districts going to have schools for our great-grandchildren. So anyway, I'm not here to complain, and I don't think so. And even like now, when the value is gonna go down on that piece of property, it's gonna go up on the other piece of property. I've never went in to grumble about the amount of taxes I pay. I mean, that's just America. So, anyway.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I need to ask, are there any other electors who would like to address the board on this issue? All right, then we are going to move on to action item C, and for a recommendation after consulting with administration, I'm going to turn to Mike, who is the chair of Finance and Facilities.
Right, this came before us last week, and I will tell you, we've had this happen before, and generally the way it plays out is a district that districts are not in the business of giving away property to other districts because it impacts our tax levy. Generally the process is Lowell or someone like Lowell would come to us and ask, and typically the district that has the property would decline, and then it would go to the Hudson district and they would either decline or accept. And if they accepted, then the process then goes down to Madison. There's an appeal process that Lowell and Catherine could go through. So that's kind of the way it generally plays out, at least in my time that I've been on the board. But this is a pretty unique situation that I think makes a lot of sense for the Lowell and Catherine. That the property that's in the River Falls district is, first of all, it includes his the driveway to get to the house, but the house, the property value is really sitting in the Hudson district, and that's really where the value is, and it's not property that is looks like it could very well be developed into more, right? So if it was 20 acres that could be developed into some kind of a subdivision, we certainly wouldn't be entertaining it. But for this particular case, in this instance, I think it makes all the sense in the world to be neighborly and be good neighbors and transfer this property over to the Hudson district. So I will make a motion, whereas a meeting of the school board of the school district of River Falls was held on February 17th, 2025, and whereas a petition has been filed by Lowell and Catherine Enerson with the clerk of the school board, the petition pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 117.12, proposing to detach the following described property from the school district of River Falls and attached to the school district of Hudson. And then it gives the legal description and the tax parcel ID number 040-1082-70-010. Whereas the property is composed of former St. Croix County tax parcel numbers 040-1082-10-000 and 040-1082-70-000, which are the parcels listed in the petition, have been combined via certified survey map, and whereas the value of the property as of the most recent assessment was $77,300, and whereas the number of pupils residing on the territory as of the last count date was 0, and whereas the above identified property owners were properly noticed and the item appeared on the school board agenda for the meeting dated February 17th, 2025. Now, therefore, be it resolved that an order be issued and filed approving the petition.
Thank you, Mike. You've made that motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Bo. Questions or comments?
A question, so I'm in favor of having one way or the other, but 3 sides of it are surrounded by the River Falls School District. So I know there's no children there now, we talked about this at the meeting. What are the thoughts on future children on this site? They're gonna be surrounded by River Falls school kids.
Well, one
All up and down the road.
Yeah, one factor that the state looks at is, are we creating an island or is it contiguous? And so in this case, we wouldn't be creating an island. So it's a good point. We have an issue either way, right? So if nothing changes, in talking to the bus garage and in talking to Hudson School District, we would be in an odd situation for how that pickup would go for the students or potential students that would be there. That would have to require the districts to reach some sort of agreement either way. By combining them into one way or the other, that allows us to not have to have that agreement have to be reached. It's just clear that that's a Hudson School District parcel.
I mean, do Hudson buses go down that road?
They do, yeah. That was communicated to me by their superintendent.
Okay.
but they don't stop. That's the difference, right?
Right.
Unless
I mean, it's
there's a
going to
stop.
create an odd situation for future children on that site. No one else on that road will go to Hudson schools except those kids.
Maybe they can open
If-
enroll.
But if someone
They can
moved in,
open enroll.
but if someone moved in there now, it's the same thing.
I was gonna say,
We're not
that's a-
changing where the house, we're
That's
not moving the
accurate.
house.
Yeah, that's an accurate statement now as well. So us,
Right.
by doing this, it doesn't change the fact that that's the case.
Yeah.
And
So,
it,
yeah.
it is reasonable for the property to be all in one school district,
Oh,
rather than a
absolutely.
corner be in another school district.
Absolutely.
Really, the only way that this is going to get solved is for us to be neighborly and to grant this.
Well, I think we should grant it.
Yeah.
I just am wondering, why wouldn't Hudson, I mean, the neighborly thing for Hudson to do would be to grant it that children should all go to the same school district or live on the same street.
Couple pieces there. One, that wasn't what the petition was.
Oh, right.
So, good point, just
Yeah.
not the petition that was in front of us. And two, in communicating with Hudson in a very respectful tone, they said that that's not the route that they would take if it was the reverse.
They would not be in favor of this.
Mhm.
Interesting.
We could have kept Jamie here a little longer. We could have told him,
Should have kept Jamie here?
Jamie Johnson.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. And Amanda, in the minutes, could you please make sure to include that the board, based on our conversation today and last time, that this is not a precedent-setting decision, that we are making this decision because it is an extremely unique situation, and it seems like the best thing to do, based on the uniqueness of the geography in this petition. We talked about that today, and we decided no.
We would not want a future board to look back at our minutes and go, well, the board changed its procedures back in 2025 and started doing this.
I don't know that we've ever
Right.
ever done this. And I don't know that it'd be a very, very unique situation like this.
Well, it makes me wonder, and we could probably ask the counties, how many people are getting tax statements, duplicate tax statements because their land is split?
Their contiguous land is split. There might be, they
Oh,
might
right,
have.
they might own a parcel in River
So
Falls.
I just think that, let's put it on record, that we don't consider this a change in direction or anything else. This is just it's a very unique case. It's the neighborly thing to do. It's what we ought to do, and we're going to do it.
But we don't want it to impinge upon future boards and their ability to be able to make a decision that preserves district property. All right.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much, and I want to say that my son is the superintendent, and he hasn't been coaching me at all, because when I first got he's in Minnesota, and he said, school districts draw lines, and he didn't go beyond that, and he said, I don't understand Wisconsin law, I only understand Minnesota. So the other thing was nice, I know what he does on Monday nights.
Thank you for your patience, and now look at this 10-year-old problem is on its way to being solved.
Thank you, I'm relieved. It's just
We do A's and E's.
Yes, we did. It passed with 6-0.
Sorry to interrupt whatever's going on in here, but, see, now, like,
That's a tall kid to interrupt here.
I'm a basketball coach for the 4th grade league, and we're having our end of year party, and I rented with the River Falls Rec, the Greenwood gym from 7:15 to 9:15, and the doors are locked. Can anybody help me get in
I
there?
bet someone has a key.
Hey, again.
I'm that person. Hi, Sam.
Good to see you.
I'll be back.
Hey, did you play, Sam? Did you play basketball?
Way back.
That was
I used to, yeah.
I can tell.
All right, we are going to move on to a report and recommended action from the Educational Program Committee, and Alan.
All right. The Education Program Committee met Monday, February 3rd, 2 weeks ago. And there were several things. We had, first off, we had a really good conversation and an overview on the WIAA. Dave Creel was with us, and this whole thing about NILs, name, image, and likeness, and endorsements, and what the WIAA is going to do about it. So there was no action on this, but it was a very, very good conversation. Dave did a good job of representing topic to us and talking us through it so that we're aware as the WAIAA makes policy on this, we're better informed on what's going to happen, so. And then we had an action item on the River Falls 4C contract and approved that for the 25-26 year. Amy, were there any changes? There weren't any substantial changes, were there? Dave?
After the conversation?
Yeah,
No?
okay. There are no real substantial changes in that. So at this point, I will move that we approve the River Falls 4C contract for 25-26 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. I think we should say that there are changes from the 24-25 contract, but there are not changes since we had our discussion at the committee meeting. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
And then we had a discussion, this is actually the second time it's come forward, number 6 and number 7 here that deals with student records, and these are two the policy and then the rule that goes with the policy. And based on our conversation the first time around, and just for the record, this is something we often do, rather than try and edit and rewrite something at a committee meeting, we discuss it and then send it back to the administration for updates and come back to us based on our conversation, which is exactly what happened. So I will move, should we do both of these at the same time or do them
Those you can
separately?
do at the same time.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will move that the board approve the initial reading of revised school board policy 347, student records, and revised school board policy 347, rule.
I will second that.
Thank you, Monica. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Mike?
All right, so we had our finance and facility meeting last Monday. The first thing we did was acknowledge and our appreciation for our bus drivers. It was National Wisconsin School Bus Driver Appreciation Week was February 10th through the 14th. And so we would like to acknowledge all the hard work that they put in and how important they are as part of our team, our school team. So that was the start. We went through a facility project update. Kraus Anderson has finalized the contracts, or in the process of finalizing contracts and then signing a GMP has been signed, which is a guaranteed max price, which means the risk of any overages are transferred from the district to Kraus Anderson after they sign those contracts. So we are making good progress. We've started our construction at the high school. We have a trailer there. We have some earth being moved even during this cold time. I don't know.
Really?
Yep, they've started to work over at the high school back on our multi-purpose room that they're putting on. Joe Hazelman is coordinating our facility usage. Our buildings are used throughout the summertime for a lot of different things. And so Joe is working with the stakeholders and coming up with a plan for our buildings during the summer. Mr. Crail, David Crail, is working with UWRF. We're going to be moving our speed and strength program from the high school. We're going to be moving over to UWRF for the summer. So that's some exciting. They have some really high-end facilities there that our student athletes will get to take benefit from. So we also had our kids club update. We had Angela Bonard in from our kids club, and they talked about the summer programming, what they were going to be doing, how they're going to be handling the space with the high school being under construction. Looks like they're going to be moving upstairs and being housed out of the second floor at the high school. So they have a good action plan there. They're going to be spending a lot of times out of facility and on field trips this year. We talked about a little bit of a fee increase, happens every 3 or 4 years. Prices are going to be going up a little bit for families, which is to be expected. She kind of gave us an idea as to where we fit in with other districts in the area and how they handle their kids club programs and prices. And we feel confident that we're still very competitive in that. And then she did us a review of the budget for this coming year along with prior years. So We went through our own budget, our monthly budget report that Lynette provides to us. We looked at two different types of reports. We're starting to look at the Baird model, which is a little bit more user-friendly in reading, but maybe a little bit more, not as, I don't know, what would you say, not as.
It's prettier.
Lynette?
That's about it. Yeah, I would say it doesn't provide as much detail for discussion.
Right.
It's very much rolled up, and so it's hard to have discussion about specific areas of our budget.
Right. So we're still kind of looking at both ways to decide long-term. The one we've used historically is not very user-friendly. If you just grabbed it and started looking at it, it's a little bit challenging to figure out what's what in it. So, but if you get used to reading it every month, as we do, and we are on track. I mean, we're on budget. We started to see revenues come in January. End of January is when we start to see the tax payments come in from the property taxes. So that's really kind of our first real big cash infusion for this school year. And the big one for the year is that end of January, early February. So we've got those. We reviewed the petition that we just spoke about with the Enersons and went through that and had a very similar conversation. He presented to us what the reasoning was. He wanted to make those changes to his property. So we also then reviewed the memorandum of understanding with our FFA. We have school district bought land on the west side of town many, many years ago with the idea, this was before the high school was built, the idea was it was a potentially site for our high school. At that time, it was decided over the years that we were going to build on the south where we are now at the Cemetery Road. So we have this plot of land that we have used, that the FFA uses as a learning opportunity for our students in our FFA program, and they take great care of it and take real ownership in it. So we discussed that, and we actually have to every year, is it every year we do the memorandum of understanding with them, right? That's a yearly process.
Yeah, the one addition in this regard is we're agreeing to allow them to connect to the water.
Right.
So they can water. So that's the addition to our normal MOU agreement. So
Right.
just to clarify that, this MOU is going to also include the ability for the alumni to pay to have water hooked up and then to pay for the use of water to achieve some of their goals out there.
Right.
So.
And what are they're doing with the land? They are growing,
Yep,
right?
that's right.
They use it really kind of as a test plot for the high school kids and where our FFA kids go out and learn about.
Kids have different supervised agricultural experiences that they do, so they're individualized projects, and this is one space that they can do the project. That's one thing that happens out there. And then they also have land that there's crops that are grown there, and then those crops, the yield goes back into scholarships for students.
And at no cost to the district will this.
Nope.
The FFA will be paying for it, so the Alumni Association. So I will make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the School District of River Falls and the River Falls FFA Alumni Association for infrastructure improvements on a seasonal watering system at the school farm.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Bo. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. All right. The Personnel Committee met on February 10th, and during that meeting, we reviewed the 2024 student and staff ratio. As a result of looking at that data, it shows that out of the 10 districts that we typically use in our comparisons, we rank 9 out of 10 in terms of the ratio of students to staff. We also received a staffing update in preparation for reviewing the administration's proposal for the 2025-26 staffing plan, which is an informational item for us tonight, which I will say that when we are reviewing that plan, it says phase 1. That does not necessarily mean that there will be a second phase, but it's allowing us to recognize that we're making some early decisions because we'd like to be able to get our job postings out as soon as possible. And then I'll give an outline, and then Nate can speak to this more in depth if he would like to. But the additional positions, FTEs, that we are proposing address increasing special education needs in our district. So we have more and more students who are in need of special education services, and we simply have to have the staff to be able to provide that support. The committee recommends that the board approve the 2026-27 school year calendar. The committee also recommends that the board approve the commencement of contract negotiations. That's a legal requirement that we have as we begin to negotiate with our two unions, the bus drivers and the teachers. The meeting also included a closed session, and during that time, we discussed the 2025-26 contract negotiation goals, the timeline for that negotiation process, as well as the issue around the number of teacher contract days. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd like to add a few things related to phase one of the staffing plan, just for the sake of all board members, because not everybody was at the personnel meeting, but also for the public that might be listening in. So creating a staffing plan is a process that our administrative team goes through and brings to the board each and every year, typically from the month of November through February. Sometimes it goes into March. And this is a time where we audit the needs of the district, and we spend time as an administrative team talking about those needs, trying to prioritize what the needs are, advocating for needs by building, because there is a little bit of that going on, considering the alignment of those needs with the strategic plan, and also how it fits into our overall budget planning for next school year. So when we do that, we also take a look at comparable data related to the needs that we identify through that process. Because all of the needs listed on our phase one staffing plan are special ed related, we looked at caseloads of neighboring districts. And one of the things that we found was that we are above average in terms of the caseload per teacher, which not only has an impact on those students and on that particular teacher, but also on the rest of the staff and the rest of the students in the building. There's a trickle-down impact when you happen to be understaffed in high-need areas. And we also looked at some data that the DPI shares related to required caseload for what's called related services, speech language, OT, and PT. And we are well above what the state recommends us following in those particular areas.
In terms of caseload.
In terms of caseload, yep. We also look at enrollment, and the board understands, and most of the public that have been paying attention, that our overall enrollment isn't growing dramatically. We're relatively flat, but in terms of special ed enrollment, our numbers have grown by over 70 students in the last 4 years. Not only has the number grown, I would say that the need of those students, represented by 70, has also grown. So we're seeing more kids that are qualifying for special education, not just in one area, but in multiple areas. A good question to ask would be, well, is it getting easier to find your way into special education? And the answer to that is no. It's a rigorous process, more so than it has been in the past. You heard Kai and the elementary principals talk about their version of student support team, where they're looking at what's happening with these kids in regular education classrooms, what types of interventions are being offered, and there needs to be 2 evidence-based interventions provided over the course of time to ensure that we're not just missing something in regular ed before a student qualifies for special ed. So I wanted to make sure that the public and the board recognize that there's not a fast track to special education happening in our district. That's not the reason for our increase in students. Also, and this is a really important point, is that we're required by law to meet the needs of our special education students. IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, has been in place for a long time, and we're obligated by law to follow it and make sure that their specific needs are being met. As important to us here in this district, we're committed to making sure that all students have their needs met, and for us, all means all. So whatever it takes to make sure that that happens, we're going to try our very best to do. Unfortunately, special education is one of several unfunded mandates that school districts have, which means that we are only compensated a portion of the expenses to educate special ed students. And in Wisconsin, that's about 33%. We're keeping an eye on the proposed budget that the governor has put in place, which I think he's asking for 60%. And any percent we can get above 33 would help us in a big way. So keep your fingers crossed, and if you happen to know any legislators, feel free to reach out and give them a little push to
You don't have to
help
know
see
them
that
to
through.
reach out to them.
That's right.
Everybody.
If you can find an email, which we could help with, right? You might even just give them the
Publicly
email.
available.
That's right.
I've
That's
got their
right.
cell numbers. Are public.
And then, as Stacy mentioned, this coming to you with phase one right now is really, really important for us because special educators are hard to fill positions. There aren't a lot of them. The pool is not deep in terms of numbers, and getting out early and in front of this will give us the best chance of having a strong pool of candidates and eventually hiring people that are high quality that fit the needs of our district. So that's why we're coming to you. That's why this is phase one. Is there a chance that phase two comes along? Maybe. At this point, we're not prepared to come to you with that based on our assessment of the needs in the district. These are things that we consider to be essential and that we want to hopefully, through our recommendation, find approved tonight so we can get started on the hiring process.
Any questions about that?
No, we haven't heard anything from the federal level about IDEA funding.
No.
Not
It's
yet.
about,
No.
what,
But
$250
I would say that
million a year to Wisconsin.
yeah, a much smaller portion of funding comes from the federal government for special ed than what we get from the state. It's a much smaller percentage than the 33%.
But if we didn't have it, it would definitely be very
No, I think
problematic for us.
doesn't that include the 33? Isn't that a part of the
No.
33%? It's in addition. But IDEA funds into the state of Wisconsin is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, we call it flow-through, because it flows through the state, but it's
Okay.
really federal. And that is a key way that we fund not just staffing, but also supplies, resources, purchase services, those types of things. And so it would be a big deal.
Right.
But with all executive orders or things that are taking place, we're really just focused on closely following it and not reacting one way or the other until we have the right information. Good question.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to make a motion that the board accept the Personnel Committee's recommendations, and so that would be to approve the 2025-26 staffing plan, Phase 1, to approve the 2026-27 school year calendar, and then to approve the commencement of contract negotiations. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Ellen. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. We have two first readings of school board policies in front of us, and so Dave is going to walk us through these adjustments.
The first one is policy 133, filling school board vacancies. So this is a situation in which a school board member were to resign or be removed or cease being a resident. Those are probably the most: resign or cease being a resident. So if that happens, what is our standard practice for filling them? And really, there's no structural changes, no adjustments to our regular practice. We did include some language to make sure that we're aligned to statute around making sure that it's filled within 60 days. Are there any questions on any of those pieces? Okay, so then I'm going to move on to the second piece, which is the rule. And this is something that we did not have in place. So we had practices in place, but we didn't have them defined by policy. And so we relied on past practice that wasn't in policy to put it into policy, as well as just reviewing how other districts have policy on this topic. And so it's really broken into two sections. The first section is Part A, and that defines how you would fill a board vacancy if it happened within 60 days of it happening, right? So really, what's our process during the 60 days immediately following the date of the vacancy to fill it? And so that's the ideal situation. It's also the most likely scenario. Every effort would be done to complete that within 60 days. And so the first piece is notice. That's what's outlined in number 1. How we go about noticing the fact that we have a vacancy. We want to make sure that every stakeholder is aware that is there. The second is a questionnaire is developed, and that questionnaire really focuses on the background experiences and qualifications and prior involvement in public service, knowledge of River Falls and knowledge of the school board. So really helping the school board collect information that will help guide them in the choices that they're making. The next piece is making sure that the person is actually eligible to hold that seat. So double checking that they don't live at Lowell's house, because that's no longer in the school district, for example. Number 4, just interview. There would be a board meeting, an open board meeting scheduled to interview the candidates, and those candidates would be the ones who completed the questionnaire by the required deadline. So there's a little bit of skin in the game to make sure that they are meeting those deadlines. And the interview questions would be based on a prepared set of questions that would be provided to the candidates. And then at the conclusion of the interviews, number 6 outlines the process by which there would be a weighted voting procedure to identify the top candidates until a top candidate is identified through a majority vote. And it's important to note that all votes would be recorded and preserved and open to the public. That's aligned to state statute. So that's kind of the process that we would use within 60 days. Statute requires that we have kind of a Part B to that, which says, well, what happens if you don't fill it within 60 days? And really, there's 2 things within Part B of it. And the first is, if in the first 60 days a candidate can't be found, and then 60 days from then, so 120 days from the vacancy, if there's an election, then there's no requirement to fill that vacancy. It will just be filled at the next election. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then if Part B, number 1, doesn't apply, so in other words, you're not within that 120-day window, and the school board hasn't been able to fill the vacancy using the methods in Part A, which is the most likely scenario, then the vacancy would be filled by appointment of the school board president. So that's really in a situation where the board can't get to a consensus. And I looked at, okay, so what do most districts do? And most districts do what is recommended here. And so that's what's recommended by WASB policy and Neola policy. So that's kind of why that's there. And clearly every effort would be taken to avoid that scenario. But I wanted to make sure we said that out loud. Are there questions about that?
So Dave, because obviously if somebody goes off the board, then it's an even number of board
Correct.
members. So if it ended up being a 3-3 deadlock, then the board chair gets to decide.
First, we go through the process that is outlined in Part A, and every effort is made to reach a majority vote through that process.
Right.
Correct.
And if it doesn't, then the board president can decide.
And then second, if it's not within 120 days.
Right. Okay.
All right. At this point, is there a motion to approve the first reading of revised school board policy 133, filling school board vacancies, as well as the first reading of new school board policy 133 rule, procedures for filling school board vacancies?
So moved.
Thank you, Ellen. Is there a second?
Second.
Either.
I think it was Allison. All right. Questions or comments? Anything on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right. We have 12 second readings, and I'm going to go through this list once. So at this point, is there a motion to approve the second reading of revised school board policy 183 for voting? Approve the second reading of revised school board policy 186, the citizen advisory, regarding citizen advisory committees. The second reading of revised school board policy 186 rule connected to citizen advisory committee guidelines. The second reading of revised school board policy 188, remote school board participation in meetings. The second reading of revised school board policy 190, recognition for accomplishments. The second reading of revised school board policy 152.1 related to personnel negotiations. The second reading of revised school 532.1, yes, personnel negotiations. The second reading of revised school board policy 538, professional staff evaluation. The second reading of revised school board policy 761, free and reduced meal prices. The second reading of revised school board policy 830, the use of district facilities, grounds, and equipment. The second reading of revised school board policy 830, the rule related to use of district facilities, grounds, and equipment. The second reading of revised school board policy 910, facility development goals. And then the second reading of revised school board policy 940, naming school district facilities. Is there a motion, please?
I would love to make that motion.
Wonderful, Monica. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Could you repeat those?
No.
Okay, to speak.
Absolutely.
So at the last meeting, we talked about voting 183. And there was some question, and we thought we actually, it was in the second reading, and we held it for one more month, and now we're bringing it back for its final second reading. And that's policy 183, it's the first one. It's on page 90 in your packet. If you recall, we talked a little bit about some statute language, and to jog your memory, Monica read the statute language. And so we double-checked with legal counsel, and our legal counsel's recommendation is just have that paragraph read exactly like the statute. So if you recall, Monica read it all out, and that's what it says now. So unless otherwise specifically provided by statute, no secret ballot may be utilized to determine any election or other decision of the governmental body except the election of the officers of such body in any meeting. So what that means is in our practice, we don't have secret votes, right? However, the only time that you could do that by statute is in the election of officers, so school board president, treasurer, all that stuff. It doesn't mean you have to, it just means statute allows you to. So I just wanted to make sure that
Which I think
people are
is
aware.
good, and that was kind of the point I was bringing
Yep.
up, is we aren't contentious, but sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and this is good to outline when you can and when you
When you
can't.
can.
And it's good. Yep.
Yep, thank you. Just wanted to make
Thank you
sure
for that addition. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, on an annual basis, it is our responsibility to conduct self-evaluation. So we have received the charts that summarize feedback that we provided to ourselves, as well as feedback from administrators. And I'm wondering, now after you've had a chance to go through this, what you're noticing.
Did we get those?
We did not.
We did not get those.
You got an email from me.
You did.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
I just called up, I did a search of emails. There they are from you, Amanda. I don't have any with that listed on there.
I don't know that I have them either.
I guess we're going to need to wait.
We'll wait. Yeah.
We'll wait to do this, which is absolutely not a problem. When you get it, you're going to get some that are, I would print them out in color because it's an awful lot easier to tell. And now I've just lost where I put my stuff here. Yep, sorry. All right. Okay, so are there any proposed items for future agendas? All right. Yeah, I guess we're going to do that, yeah. So
Okay,
we'll schedule
got it.
the next meetings. Finance and Facilities will meet Monday, March 3rd at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
I do have it.
Which date? January 29th, she sent it out.
That was a problem. That was a Tuesday. We don't look at emails on Tuesday.
As a matter of practice,
No,
we'll
but I
make
do.
sure the board has it. We want to make sure that
We
everyone
want
has had a chance.
a good discussion about it. The Educational Program Committee will meet Monday, March 10th at 6 o'clock. Personnel will meet Monday, March 10th at 7 o'clock or immediately following educational program. Everybody recognizes this is juggling our schedule a little bit because of when board members will be here. The next regular school board meeting will be Monday, March 24th at 6 o'clock. All of those meetings will be here. And at this point, my recommendation is that we also table our closed session until next time. We have a superintendent who needs to make a decision about school tomorrow. So that's going to take precedence.
It's been made.
So, yes, so,
What's the verdict?
we are going to adjourn this meeting, and we will pick up those other issues at the next